Welcome to Veteran State of Mind. I'm your host, Geraint Jones. Very glad to be with you today, guys. Got an absolutely fantastic guest. Somehow, we have managed to go 76 episodes of the podcast without having a Navy SEAL on. But we've got our first one on today, and he is an absolute hell of a bloke. It's one of those episodes, we've had a few of these where you see somebody online, you hear the stories, and this is one of them. You guys might be familiar of a video that came out of Syria where there's a few Americans behind a Iraqi army tank. One of the Americans runs out, grabs a young girl that was under fire from ISIS snipers. Well, they're all under fire from ISIS snipers, and there's a couple of guys at the back of the vehicle covering fire on AKs, and then as they're retreating, one of the guys gets shot through the leg. And I've seen those videos a bunch of times. And the guy that got shot through the leg, his name is Ephraim. He's joining us on the podcast today. He's the author of a book called City of Death, which I highly recommend. I've been going through the audio book. It's narrated by Ephraim himself, and he does a really good job of it. So I'll link that up. I'll put a direct link that to. I'll put the Audible link at the end of the in the show notes of the podcast, so you can just click straight through to that. I highly recommend the audio book. Please do support the guests that we have on the podcast, because obviously they're giving up their time to be here, giving up a couple of hours. And I think it's the least we can do to go out and pick up a book. Definitely follow them on social media. I'll tag all that up in the show notes just to make it easier. I want to say thank you as well to Combat Fuel for sponsoring today's podcast. I've been using their vegan protein for a while now, and we've had a chat, and they're going to sponsor the podcast. So Combat Fuel, welcome to the podcast. I'll tell you why I'm using vegan fuel, guys. I do eat meat, and I do eat dairy products, so I am not a vegan. I also wear leather jackets, so I'd be burnt at the stake. I'd be for being a terrible vegan, and that wasn't a joke about steaks. The reason I use vegan protein is because I am what you call a humanitarian, a bit like Ephraim, and I do not believe in stinky farts and filling a room full of them. And so I switched to vegan protein a couple of years ago now. I got to say, this salted caramel one from salted caramel vegan protein from Combat Fuel is probably the best tasting. It mixes really well. What I do as well is I mix it up with a bit of almond milk, and you basically turn it into a mousse. Put about 100 mils in with a scoop, and get yourself a nice little mousse. And I find that really quite filling. Or after I've had a good workout, I'll put some protein in with a couple of bananas, maybe a bit of peanut butter too. Mix that all up with some ice and have an essence shake. So check them out over at Combat Fuel. Again, they're tagged up in the show notes. And without further ado, guys, I just want to get straight to it, because honestly, I think, like as I always say, every guest we've had on this podcast is impressive. They wouldn't be here otherwise. But there's certain blokes you come across and you think, God, this bloke is a fucking good bloke, this is. And Ephraim is just one of those guys. So please give a warm welcome to Mr. Ephraim Mattos. Ephraim, welcome to the podcast, mate. Thanks for coming.
Well, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Mate, we've been looking forward to this one for a while, or at least I have. I'm not sure about the listeners. They don't get to have a say in these things. But yeah, we were supposed to get together when I was out in the States, but coronavirus happened. You fucked your back up or something as well, didn't it? It's something like that.
I did. Yeah, dude. And get this, I just found out about a month ago, 3-4 weeks ago, that I actually have a compression fracture in my spine from a bad parachute landing that happened years ago, and it's just gotten worse and worse over time. And I found out that the back issue was actually a compression fracture. So that's been its own beast that I'm trying to make peace with and try and figure out how to move on with.
Well, we'll talk some more about Buds in a bit, but is this the same injury that you picked up at Buds?
No, it's actually not. I had a lower back injury in Buds, and then this was a totally separate back injury, months later when we were doing parachute operations.
You need to start doing some more yoga classes, mate.
Well, dude, honestly, that's the only reason I was able to function after Buds. And my first back injury, that you were talking about with Buds. Man, I would just go on my own and go do hot yoga. And that was like the only reason I could function was, because it just helped to realign my spine and everything.
Sweet. Well, we'll come back and talk about that, mate. But let's take it back to the beginning. Your name, you've got an Old Testament name. So is your brother, and I can't remember how to pronounce his. What's your brother's name? Because that name was badass.
Yeah, my brother's name is Zebulon.
Zebulon, that's sick.
Yeah. which is cool.
And you're from Wisconsin in the United States.
Yep. I was born on the west coast of the United States in Washington. I was actually born on an Army hospital because my dad was in the military at the time. He wasn't in the Army; he was in the Air Force. But so I was born on a military base in Washington, and then but I spent my entire childhood in Wisconsin. I don't even have memories of Washington State. So yeah, Midwestern through and through.
So what for our British listeners then? What's your prototypical Midwestern life like as a child?
Well, okay, so we have this phrase here in the States. We call all the most activity and stuff happens on the coasts, right? Everything happens in either New York or Los Angeles, and everything in the middle, a lot of people refer to as the flyover states. Those are just the states where people, they just fly over them when they're going between New York and Los Angeles. So it's not a super happening place. It's a much more simple way of life. Things are a lot slower and people are a lot nicer. That's a very common thing. So yeah, it's just good old salt of the earth kind of people. And I grew up in Wisconsin. I grew up in a city though, so it's not like I was out in the in the cornfields or whatever. Growing up, I was definitely not a country boy. But it's a good, simple, balanced life. Everybody's very blue collar. You work your 9-to-5 job, and you try to get a house in the suburbs, and you just live a simple life.
And you're from a pretty religious family.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I was actually, we were part of a fundamentalist Christian group, and I know that sounds a little crazy. It really wasn't that crazy. It was just.
You get a suicide vest?
No. But that's actually funny though, because it's like I kind of understand like where extremists are coming from, because it's like I remember growing up and being indoctrinated in one way of thinking. But no, like very good folks, very good people. There was just a lot of rules. There was, especially on the kids, So like, there's no drinking, obviously no smoking. You couldn't date when you were in high school. There was no rock music. You couldn't go to movie theaters. So just a lot of stuff like that. But but one of the things that was actually really good about it though was there was a big influence, there was a big push to serve and help others. That was one of the big things that was really instilled in me throughout my entire childhood. I spent a lot of my time. So I live in the city of Milwaukee, and Milwaukee is one of the most segregated cities in America racially. I mean, you literally just cross a certain street and it's all white people, and you cross another street and it's all black people, and you cross another street and it's all Mexicans. And because of that, though, I was where I would always go do ministry work was always in the poorest neighborhoods. So I got to.
What's ministry work, mate?
Ministry work was just like helping people out and inviting them to church and things like that. So every Saturday during my entire childhood, I would actually go into the ghettos of Milwaukee, and you would just make friends with the other kids and teenagers there, and then you invite them to church, and they would come to church. It gives them a chance to to escape their escape their situation for a few hours, and they get to go to a place where hey you're loved, we care about you, here's some teachings and some thoughts on how you can live a better life. And, it was good. I got to see, by no stretch of the imagination did I come from a rich family at all. We were very like lower middle class, sometimes barely had, enough food in the cupboards to feed everybody. But I had a very close, tight knit family. And when I went into these, into the ghetto, I was going on Saturday mornings. And so I would see the parents of some of these kids, passed out on the floor,
Jesus,
still hungover, still on drugs. The kids are, getting up and dressing themselves, and they haven't showered, and there's cockroaches in the houses, and they're living a very, very different life than mine. And there was a big, and so I guess that was a very good eye-opening, informative experience for me through my entire childhood to realize, hey, you want to know what? Other people don't have it the way that I have it. And that doesn't mean that they're evil or bad or anything like that. It's like, hey, we all need to help each other out. And, there's obviously a bunch of different, okay, what's the reason why is there the segregation and why is there the inequality and all that stuff? And, that's political, cultural stuff. And there's, but the point is we all just need to help each other out and help each other up. And the way that I see the world is not the way that somebody else sees the world. And what we need to do is, find our commonalities and, work together to give to those who give to those who have less than us. So yeah, anyway, that was pretty much my childhood. Sort of very, very religious focused.
Sounds like there's worse ways to spend it though, mate.
Oh, I had a great childhood. Yeah,
absolutely. What's the kind of, like in that kind of religious context then was like sporting, were you allowed to take part in sports and team games and those kind of things?
Oh yeah, actually. Basketball is very big in the Midwest, basketball and football. We didn't have, so I went to a school that had literally 35 kids in the entire school because it was based just out of the church. And those 35 kids were kindergarten all the way through, 12th grade.
That's not enough for a football team.
No, you don't have enough. I had one other guy in my grade growing up and 3 girls. So there was the 5 of us.
That's a good ratio though.
Yeah, it was. But I mean, yeah, it was, so actually the church that I went to, where we met and where the actual church itself was actually on this huge, beautiful basketball court. So we had these big mats that we would kind of pull up, covering this big, beautiful basketball court, and we would crank the basketball hoops up to the roof. And, it was really cool. And then, so when it was time to play basketball, we just pull all the chairs and everything to the side. It would take, maybe half an hour to stack up all the chairs and move everything to the sides. And the walls were actually bleachers. So we transformed the church space into this beautiful full court basketball court. And we would play that. We would play basketball all the time. We'd also play soccer, or as you guys would say, football. But yeah, so I got to play tons of sports growing up.
When you're in a class, then so in your grade, like a grade is class school year, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got 2 guys, 3 girls. Does that mean your class size is 5 people? You're getting 1 teacher for 5 kids?
Well, what they would do is they would usually combine 2 different grades for a lot of things. Okay. So, for example, like history classes and stuff like that, you'd have the 7th and 8th graders would both be in the same class. And then they would just sort of swap the curriculum, each year kind of thing. So that way you're not obviously getting the same class twice over. So, I mean, I would say average class size was maybe at most 10 or 11.
Wow.
Yeah.
So so you got like a lot of individual attention from a teacher then.
Oh yeah, tons of it. Yeah, there was no hiding in the back of the class. There was none of that. But yeah, we were like this. It was like a really cool, just kind of tight knit community. So we got direct attention from the teachers. If you didn't know what was going on, or there was no way to hide and just kind of be like, oh, I don't know what's going on. You got lots of attention from.
And did it have quite a religious was there like a religious theme to the lessons, or how did that work?
Not the history or the science or the math or the English or any of the stuff like that. But we did have specific I guess I don't know how to describe them. I would call them, we basically would have like a Bible class as well. Mm-hmm. That was one of our sort of elective type classes. And so you would, you'd go through the Bible and they would talk about, but they would make it practical. Like here's, some Christian books that people have written about how to develop character and how does that apply to, the Bible and things like that. Or biblical history and whatnot. So, and then also at the beginning of every single class, there was always a verse of the week. And so that you would get tested on at the end of the week. Mm-hmm. So every class you would always get up, you'd quote the Bible verse or read the Bible verse. And then you'd start your class.
Yeah. And here's the thing, dude, like I come across like a lot of quotes flying around from the Bible and things. It seems in some ways it's almost like the original self-help book in a lot of the ways, like when you're talking about building character and stuff. There's a lot of great, I think people are, instead of looking at the Bible and saying like whether or not instead of saying like, look, is there lessons in here for everybody? People go, oh, I just don't believe that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't matter if you don't need to believe in everything in it that happened because of God or Jesus or any of that. But there's fucking good lessons in it regardless.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The stories in there are, useful. And whether you believe that, some of the more mystical versions of them are accurate, was there an angel talking to this person or whatever, like I think one of the best things about the Bible and to be clear, like I'm not particularly religious anymore. Like I don't go to church. I don't read my Bible every day or anything like that. But just in general, just objectively, like the Bible has a lot of really, really great stories, and it's about human nature. I kind of think of it as like, think of it like this. Think of it like Game of Thrones, right? Game of Thrones is basically the Old Testament of the Bible, and I guess even like New Testament. I mean, there's swords and people are slaughtering each other, and there's all kinds of ridiculous things happening. And you can learn from that. It doesn't mean you have to believe it. You don't have to believe that there's dragons or whatever. I'm
from Wales, mate. We have a dragon on our flag. They're definitely real.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've seen them coming out of a bar at 3:00 in the morning. They definitely exist.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of good stuff you can learn from it.
Yeah, and also Game of Thrones last season. What did you think? What was your opinion? Let's get that out of the way.
I was honestly, it's actually funny. I just rewatched over this last month or two because of obviously lots of downtime with quarantine in my back and everything. So I watched pretty much the entire show all over again, and I was okay with the last season. I just didn't like how they ended it. It was kind of like, we all are like, we're all used to seeing. We all watch the show for the shock value. We all watch the show because it's like, okay, who's going to die today? Like which of my favorite characters is going to die in this episode, And then it was like, oh, Bran the Broken is now the king. And it was like, ugh.
Someone would have just murdered him 20 seconds later and taken the crown off him.
Exactly.
It's like the whole thing was about people killing each other. It's like, right, we've got these badass armies. Oh no, fuck it, I want the crown. And it's like, oh, the crippled guy in the chair. Yeah, sound all right. We'll bend to that decision. No, someone just stood up and stabbed him in the face.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that's a good call. Probably, you have this guy with lots of knowledge and who understands history and everything, but. That's, I don't know.
Since when do we listen to anyone that understands history? They're the last people we listen to. The other thing as well, mate, is that a little fucker, what's his name? That little one. Varys just gets fucking torched by a dragon and he's just like, oh, well, Varys is gone. Hang on a minute. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then he just skates on it. I'm like, no, sorry, mate. You little snitches get fucking ditches. And you fucking snitched on Varys and walk away with it.
Yeah.
Oh, mate. And I have this thing where I'm like, I really don't like to criticize anybody else's work because it's like, I always think that that's just like a shitty thing to do.
Right.
So I'm not criticizing that season of Game of Thrones at all. I'm criticizing the actions of the characters because they seem almost like they've transcended art and became real people in the earlier seasons. So I feel like I'm criticizing more real people than I am the work of the producers. That's just my nice caveat for me slagging off of the last season.
Fair enough.
So getting back to school and stuff then, mate. When you were in school then, what was the kind of the expectations? Because we all have it. We got a lot of young listeners here. We all have it when we're growing up. The family have expectations for you and communities have expectations for you. What was the community and family expectations on what you would do when you finished school?
Yeah, the expectation was that you would go to Bible college, some sort of seminary or Bible college, and the idea was that you would the highest ideal, the highest sort of thing that you could aspire to be would be like a pastor or a missionary, and so and if you didn't do those things, that was fine, but it was kind of like, oh, you're not really living up to your potential. You've been given this great opportunity to go do great things, and in the ministry, and if you don't do that, you're kind of like wasting your talent and all the training and everything that you've gotten. So there was definitely a lot of pressure to do that, and I know tons and tons of kids who the problem with that though, with that sort of black and white, cut and dry mentality, was that you would have kids either go and spend years of their life going to Bible college or something, even though they weren't interested in it, because they were just trying to do the right thing. They were like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so then they end up wasting years of their life or getting stuck into some kind of, uninteresting, uninspired life because they would either, because they're trying to do the right thing. But on the flip side of that, some people were like, I'm not going to go to Bible college. I don't want to be a pastor. And so then the thought was, I must be a bad person. And so then they would, just go off the deep end and like get into like drugs and alcohol, like alcoholism, and there was never like a balance. Like, hey, go to church and go be an architect. That's cool. That was never talked about. It was always, well, if you're not a pastor, then you're not living up to your expectation, not living up to your potential. And so people would just kind of, go run the opposite direction. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's like so many things in life. If we could just meet in the middle on things, like life would be so much greater for us. It's like, like there's so many, like the church in some respects does a lot of great work, like a lot of the people that kind of come out of the church as missionaries, and like there's like the framework, the commandments is a great framework for people living their life. But then there's people that take too far, and it's like, well, if you're a homosexual, you're going to fucking hell, It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, why does that need to be the case? And it just seems something in human nature is like we take these great ideas, and then it's just we force them on people. We don't recognize that people have free will, and you're what I would call a questioner. That's your personality is you're a questioner, and that doesn't really go too well with religion, does it?
No, it really didn't. But to I guess comment on your first point about people taking stuff too far. I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's definitely what I saw and what I experienced was it was good people trying to do good things, but then they would just take it too far because everything had to be black and white, and there was no sort of balance in the middle, and there was no, hey, you need to question things. I actually remember. And I totally forgot about this. But I actually remember them saying that an open mind is a bad thing.
Wow.
I remember hearing that multiple times as a kid, and it was having an open mind is a bad thing because that's opportunity for the devil to fill your mind with ideas that aren't true, and and they meant well. The people who said that stuff, even though it's completely ridiculous, like they meant well, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I ended up, I was very much a questioner, and you mentioned, okay, like the extreme judgments against people who might be homosexual or whatever else. And it's like, you can have a moral code without, I guess, discriminating and without attacking other people. And, and that's what church is supposed to be for. Church is supposed to be the place where the drunkard comes in and is like, hey man, I need to get my life together so I can take care of my kids. And the church should be the most accepting, loving place for you to go. It's like the hospital, right? Like sick people go to the hospital. That's what you're there. You're there to heal. And that's what church should be. It should be, a thing and a place for people to go and heal and to be accepted, whatever their flaws are. Okay, so somebody's, I guess, according to like, biblical ideas, okay, your immorality, according to their view, might be like, okay, homosexuality. Well, you have immorality too. You're a glutton, you're obese, or, you smoke, or you have issues too, or you have a porn problem, or whatever it might be. Nobody's perfect.
Exactly.
And you can't, I mean, there is a point where you have to have a sense of morality. You have to have a sense of right and wrong. You do have to have a line in the sand, but there needs to always be acceptance and love for people that are different than you and who are struggling with different things that are, they're not evil because their struggles are different than your struggles. They're just human.
No, that's a great point, dude. The gluttony is a great one, man, because like I am a big believer people should do exercise every day. But if you don't do exercise every day, I don't think you're going to hell. Like, you're not going to burn for that. And if you want to exercise every day, I'm going to encourage you to do it. And it's the open mind one, and this is the problem with having an open mind is you then begin to question everything. So when I hear about an organization that's saying, right, we don't think it's a good thing for you to have an open mind, I think, well, that's because one of you realized that down the line somewhere that if people start asking questions, this is going to unravel pretty quickly. So let's stamp that out. And then once because someone had to have an open mind to realize that was going to be a potential issue. So then you insert that in the message of it's a bad thing, and then people always assume people have got good intentions at heart, unless you question things. So then it just becomes, it's like, well, why can't I question things? Oh, because it's bad that lets the devil in. Well, who said that? You know what I mean? That's the next question. So probably some cardinal who was fucking a wench fucking 500 years ago. And he was like, people like, Cardinal, we've seen a lot of these girls coming out of your chamber. No, asking questions is bad. You know,
that's absolutely true. And a lot of the stuff that I was, because obviously, I ended up leaving that, at the age of like 16. But the reason for that was because I just saw what they were teaching, and then I would look at the Bible and I'd be like, Jesus didn't say that. Like, what are you talking about? Or they would take some obscure verse from the Old Testament, and it was like, I'm not going to listen to that Old Testament stuff anymore because the chapter before, God said such and such. He also told them to wipe out every man, woman, and child and animal in these different, places where the Israelites were, going into. Old Testament. That's not okay now. You know what I mean? And so it's like, dude, those guys are like ISIS. At one point, you're going in and you're killing all the men, women, and kids in a city, and you're taking it over. Like, that's full on evil. But God was telling you to do that in the Old Testament. Again, that's Old Testament. It's not New Testament. It's so I just remember being like, guys, I'm honestly not too interested in hearing about anything in the Old Testament. It's like, okay, what's in the New Testament? What did Jesus say? Hey, love one another, forgive one another, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, right? The golden rule. And it's like, oh, okay, love your enemies. Like, what? That's, excuse me, that's the truth. And that's what I want to live my life by. And we can argue about, oh, was he born of a virgin? Did he rise again 3 days later? And it's like, you want to know what, dude? I don't know. I doubt it, but I mean,
yeah,
things can happen. I don't know. I wasn't there, but it's like, but that shouldn't, whether that happened or didn't happen. It's like, no. Listen to what he said. Love your enemy. What? Like, that's powerful.
We had Stephen Pressfield on the other day, and
I love his books. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's fantastic, bro. I totally fanboyed.
Yeah.
And we had dude, I've been reading his stuff for 22 years.
Amazing.
So I mean, I've never waited so long for conversation in my life, and it did not disappoint. He's an absolute legend. But one of the things he says in the Warrior Ethos is that a warrior respects his enemy, and that respect. That's love. You can make the argument that respect, love are the same things. And, we've been too quick to hate our enemies for good reason. Don't get me wrong. There's reasons behind it. But once you start dehumanizing an enemy and you don't see it as, you see them as less of you, that's when you start thinking that you're better than them. That's when you start losing people to complacency. So love your enemy doesn't mean you need to have a circle jerk with Terry Taliban.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that you understand that they're human beings and that they've got whatever they're doing, because no one ever thinks they're the bad guy. Whatever they're doing is for a reason. You might not be able to understand it, but there's a reason behind it. And, if you can come up with an idea, they can come up with a better one. And you can come up with a better one than that, and they're going to come up with a better one. So love your enemy doesn't need to mean touch each other. Mm-hmm. It just needs to mean accept that this is a human being just like you with all the potential of you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, loving your enemy, again, doesn't mean that justice shouldn't happen, or even forgiving your enemy doesn't mean that justice shouldn't be served. It's about understanding that they are human. And like you said, if you had been born, taking the Taliban, for example, if I had been born in some obscure mountain pass and in Afghanistan, I would have probably been a Taliban fighter. Almost 99% sure I would have been a Taliban fighter.
Yeah,
and so it's like,
absolutely.
Now that doesn't mean that we have to not hunt them down and stop them from doing evil things, right? Like the ISIS guys, it's like, I'm gonna hunt you down and I'm gonna kill you. Period. There is no mercy. There's a difference between like mercy and forgiveness. Forgiveness means like, hey man, I get it. You're a human. You messed up. But justice also requires that you need to die. But at the same point, I'm not going to torture you. As soon as you're done, like I have no interest in torturing you. I have no interest in abusing you. I have no interest in any of that. I might do a little, tactical questioning on the spot as soon as you get captured. Mm. But other than that, it's like, I'm not here to abuse you. I'm here to save people's lives. I'm not here because I hate you. I'm here because I love the people that you're trying to hurt, and I'm here to stop you. And also, when you dehumanize your enemy, you're not only making yourself more prone to committing war crimes, for example, but you also are preventing yourself from having the chance of understanding where they're coming from and stopping that from happening in the future. So if you're just like, oh, these guys are a bunch of savage animals, what a bunch of scumbags. The reason people say that is because basically what you're saying psychologically is, I would never do that. I'm a human. I have a soul. I would never join ISIS, right? That's all you're doing. But the reality is like, no. They're human too. They have a mother. They have a daughter. They think that they're doing the right thing because they're just doing what they were told. And honestly, when it comes to ISIS or the Taliban and other groups that I fought, honestly, I just on a man. How do I say this? I have a respect for them in a way. It's like, dude, I have watched ISIS guys drive a vehicle out and blow themselves up. Like you have to respect that. They truly I'm not going to do that. They truly believe that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah. And
they have true dedication. When I was in Mosul, I just saw the carnage and evil and horror of living in that city. And the ISIS guys had it 10 times worse than we did as we were pushing through, clearing them out. They were living in absolute abject hell, like horror, like just disgusting. And they still fought, and they still fought to the death. And again, I despise their beliefs. I despise what they do. I'm not going to have mercy on you. I'm going to find you, in combat. I'm going to find you and I'm going to kill you. But I'm not going to hate you. And I'm going to try to understand, where are you coming from? Why do you think it's okay to set up a sex trafficking ring, and have, these sex slaves that they were, selling and buying and selling in Mosul? Why do you think that's okay? Why do you think it's okay to actively shoot little girls in the back of the head as they're running away from you, trying to get to the Iraqi army? Why do you think that's okay? And the reason I want to know why you're thinking that is because I want to know how to prevent it. How do I look at things in my own society and internationally? How do I look at things and go, oh, okay, I see the thought process here. Yeah, that ends with little girls getting killed.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring us back onto the track where you were in a minute, where we're talking about the schools and stuff. We will come back to that, but I think you bring up a very good point. The reason that I think a lot of people are justifiably alarmed by what's going on in the world at the moment is because it's not about 2020, a lot of this stuff. Like, for instance, ISIS didn't spring up out of nowhere. ISIS sprang up out of thousands of years. All these, like, one conversation here, one conversation there, one religious scholar's interpretation here. These things take a long time to build. And when you see people, for instance, willing to fight in the street because they see people, so like in America right now, people are willing to fight in the street because they see someone who they think endangers a way of life. That's a big one. It's a way of life, or you're endangering my family. You can see right now how quickly people's mindsets are changed by what they're told on the news. By what they're fed. But like, if you tune into Fox are feeding you a news narrative. If you tune into CNN, they're feeding you a news narrative. And you can, like, if you have fear, which a lot of people do around the world. We're very lucky to live in America and the UK, where we grow up without really necessarily, most people, I know there's obviously, like you talk about the ghettos, but most of us don't live in fear day to day. A lot of the world does. And when someone comes in and offers you a solution to that fear, and not only they say we're the ones that get you out of it, but these are the people that put you into it. If you are a lad or a girl who cares about your family, and they say that, hey, if you run with this idea and you go and fight this war, and not only will you be rewarded, but your entire family will be, you're almost an arsehole as that kid if you don't go and join up. Because if someone offered, like any of our listeners right now, if someone said to you, and from your childhood, this is what you all believed, hey, your family, I know life is tough right now, but guess what? There's a fucking afterlife and all your family can go to it if you just do this. You're going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the human nature is to sort of, I guess, stay in one place and to not think outside the box and to not question things, because it's easier. It's easier to just go, okay, this is what I listen to, and I'm not gonna, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah. But the reality is, it's like, man, we know nothing. We are all, incredibly, incredibly dumb. And one of the great things I love about podcasts is, it gives you the opportunity to have conversations and to listen and spend 45 minutes to an hour to 3 hours listening to new ideas. And it's an open-minded, open dialogue. And, you were talking earlier a second ago about how different groups sort of get pitted against one another. Well, you want to know what happens most of the time is people who are fighting each other have never actually spoken to each other. With these different armies or, different terrorist groups, it's like, I've never spoken, to an ISIS fighter. Before somebody goes and joins ISIS, they should be like, hey, man, I've got some issues here. All right. Muslims are being killed in, occupied countries, around the world. We need to talk about this. That bugs me. And then it's like, well, no. Here's another way to look at it. And we don't hate you. We're trying to stop terrorism or whatever it might be. But they never have the conversation. So then they go and join ISIS. And the same thing absolutely happens in society right now and is happening. As you said, Fox News is going to give you the conservative point of view. CNN is going to give you the liberal point of view. And if you never meet in the middle, if you never actually sort of look across the firing line and you talk to the other person, they're like, hey, for example, if you're a conservative or if you're a liberal, it's like you talk to the other person and they're like, hey, I'm just trying to protect my family. I'm just trying to protect my way of life. And you're going like, oh, you love your family too? Well, that's what I'm trying to do as well. And it's like, oh, we have the same idea. We're angry. We are so emotional and passionate about our, political beliefs and stuff because we love our families, because we care about our families, and because we want to have a better life, right? So instead of hating one another, okay, let's sit down and talk. Let's sit down and talk and find out, okay, well, what is the best way for your kids and my kids to have a better life? What is a way for you to succeed and for me to succeed? Let's have that conversation instead of just sitting in our trenches taking pot shots at each other constantly, but that's not human nature. Human nature, it's intellectually lazy, and it's much easier to just sort of sit on the couch and be like, oh, those dumb liberals or all those darn conservatives, that's easy to do. It's harder to actually sit down with someone and be like, listen, dude, I don't understand where the heck you're coming from, but let's talk about it.
All right, guys, we'll be back to the podcast in 1 second. I just want to say a huge thank you to the Royal British Legion, because without them, there is no podcast. Guys, they make it happen here. Believe me, and I'm being fully open here. Without the Royal British Legion, there wouldn't be a podcast. They make this financially viable. Basically, I'd like to be a lot richer than I am, but I'm not. And the Royal British Legion are covering costs for this podcast and helping it run. We really, really appreciate it. And they do a lot more than that, guys. They offer everything from financial assistance and advice to care homes. They've got it all going on. And one of the things that I love about the Royal British Legion so much is that they're not just interested in the day-to-day of our modern lives. They are interested in keeping alive the memories of those who have gone before us, which is so fucking important. It's one of the things we want to do here on the podcast, and the Royal British Legion do it so well. They do it through, obviously, the events that they organise. Not so much of those at the moment, unfortunately, due to COVID, but there is still a lot going on online, and you can find it all at rbl.org.uk or at Royal British Legion. I'll tag them up in everything, guys. Just follow the links in the notes, follow the links on my social media posts, and you'll find them on there. They're doing a lot of work to keep the sacrifices remembered, and we all say it, don't we? We will remember them, and we must remember them. The Royal British Legion are a huge part of that, so please go and give them a follow. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Let's get back to the podcast. And honestly, bro, one of the problems is, once you open the can of worms and you start asking questions, it's very frustrating because you're never going to get all the answers. Mm-hmm. Because fucking half of what I thought 10 years ago was wrong, I'm probably going to find out in 10 years ago half of what I think now is wrong.
Exactly.
It can be very, very draining, man.
Yeah.
And it makes having relationships hard, because I'm like, well, where's this going? What's her motivation? What's this? What's my motivation? Am I doing this because I like this person? Am I doing it because I'm insecure? What's this? What's that? What color underpants am I wearing? It gets fucking nuts.
Yeah.
So honestly, I can really see the attraction to not asking questions. Unfortunately, once you've popped, it's like fucking Pringles, mate. Once you pop, you can't stop on the motherfucker. But once you're into it, it can be a really It could be like, I'm not surprised that a lot of fucking, because what I was going to say to you, mate, was like when you told me you wanted to write, you know, you were starting to do fiction and stuff, I was not surprised at all, because it tends to be a question as the personality type tend to write and things, because you're looking in your writing, you're looking for answers to questions. Mm-hmm. But it's also one of the reasons a lot of fucking creative people blow the fucking brains out, I think, because it just gets to the point where you're like, shut up, I don't want to ask questions anymore, I'm done.
Yeah. Well, and I think you know that's absolutely correct, and that's one of the things that I struggle with is overthinking, constantly overthinking, and then going like, what's the point of it all? You know, like that's absolutely like you're constantly questioning, and there's never really any super solid answers. It's like, okay, what does happen after we die? Well, dude, you can go check out 100 or 150 different religions. You're not going to know. You could literally spend your entire life just like, what is the meaning of life? You want to know what? You know, humans have been around, for the last 10,000 years of recorded human history. We still haven't found a parchment that says, oh, here's the meaning to life. You know, it's like, we don't really know, so it's like there comes a point where you kind of, and this is what I try to, this is an ideal that I try to live up to. And that is just try to live in the moment more, but then also, like, as you said, like things change, and 10 years from now, I'm going to be a totally different person than who I am now. But this is one of the best ways, I think, to get grounded. And that is to focus on principles as opposed to focusing on actions, right? So, okay, a principle is I'm going to live healthy, right? An action would be, okay, am I going to do, am I doing, CrossFit? Am I doing Olympic lifts? Am I focusing on cardio? Am I doing HIIT? Those are very specific things. And you can drive yourself insane watching YouTube videos and reading articles about what's the absolute best possible way to work out. It's like, don't worry about that. Don't focus on that so much. Live your life by the principle of, oh, I'm going to just make exercise a part of my life in whatever form that takes. And 10 years from now, I'm going to be doing totally different workouts probably than what I'm doing now, because I'm going to be older and slower and my joints are going to hurt more, and that just needs to be the, live your life by specific principles as opposed to just what's the absolute best action to take right now. It's like, no, just live your life by principles. Those are much easier to keep straight. And
if you work out those ahead of time, it saves like a lot of things. So if you say, hey, you know what? One of my principles is I'm going to prioritize fun in my career over money. You get offered a new job, they offer you more money, it's less fun. You've already made that decision.
Yes.
You're not going to go back and forth for weeks. You're going to be like, well, there we go. I know I decided I want more money, or I decided I want more fun. Boom, decision made.
Oh my word, dude, that's so good. Yeah, I remember that. That's very true. And I remember when I was 16 or 17, I remember I wrote this thing down, and it was I was like, I want to, or I think I wrote it down as seek the enjoyment of the experience rather than the prestige of the accomplishment. And what that meant was like, it's very prestigious to say that you stood on top of Mount Everest, right? But I am never, ever going to stand on top of Mount Everest. You want to know why? Because the entire process of walking up that mountain sounds absolutely miserable, right? So my point is, like, it would be prestigious to stand on top of Everest and be like, oh, I proved it to people, but it's like, I would not enjoy that experience at all. It would be miserable. And then you're standing up there for a second and then you're leaving. And I'm like, that's not something I'm going to prioritize, because I want to prioritize doing things that I enjoy doing, living my life, doing things that absolutely, like, I'm not going to make decisions based on money. I was like, oh, like, I remember actually, it was funny when I was in the process of leaving the military, and I'm really glad that I did join the military. But on my way out, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was basically like, "Are you sure you want to get out?" And I said, like, let me put it this way. I was like, dude, they could offer me literally $1 million to do another 4-year stint, and I wouldn't take it. And I was like, I have one life to live, and 4 years of my life, being miserable or doing something that I don't want to be doing anymore, that's not worth $1 million to me, man. It's just not.
How many people sign back up for, like, I don't know what it is there, but I know people who have signed back up in the UK for like a $5,000 bonus.
Oh, dude. Well, like in the SEAL teams, I mean, guys are getting fairly decent bonuses, especially if you're like a medic or something like that. If you have like a very, if you have an extra like level of training with certain specific job sets and whatnot that are needed. I mean, guys are looking at $50,000 to $80,000 to $100,000 bonuses to re-up. And that's great. I mean, if you're going to stay in, like, dude, that's awesome. Yep. I'll take the extra $100K for sure. But that shouldn't make that shouldn't define what decision you're going to make. If you're like, I really don't want to be here, I want to go pursue something else in life, I want to focus on my family, or I want to get into a different career field, but 100 grand right now, that sounds really good. That's no way to live your life. That's going to lead you down the wrong road.
I got to be honest. Back then, and when I was in the military, that would have worked on me. 100 grand, I'm fucking staying. But I'll be honest. But now, I remember the first writing gig that I backed out of because it was about a really heavy subject. It involved, it was about, I don't want to give away too much because, I want to respect the guy's privacy, but he'd been in law enforcement and a lot of the content was about abuse of children and that kind of stuff. Whew. And dude, I was not looking forward to getting out of bed in the morning because I'm fucking empathetic person, man. I was just fucking, it was taking over my life because I'm not the kind of person that can have my hats off to anyone that works in law enforcement or charity and does work with abused children because I was broken just writing about it after a fucking week. Mm-hmm. So I backed out of it, but it was going to be good money. And it was the first, there was a voice in the back of my head that's kind of like, your fucking great grandparents were in fucking coal mines and you can't write a book because it's making you feel bad. What's wrong with you? But then I thought, well, they were in coal mines, so I don't have to be in a coal mine.
Exactly, and there's no reason to pursue something out of a sense of guilt or out of a sense of obligation to do things like that. But dude, that's actually very smart. I mean, because as you know, with the writing process, it's such an intimate, you're sitting there not only visualizing something, but you're sitting there, how do I choose the right word that describes this? And then you might rewrite a sentence a couple of times or a paragraph, you might reword things. So you're seeing something 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times even as you're going through the editing process. And that stuff doesn't leave you. And, I've been in a lot of, combat situations and just, stuff in life, lots of life and death situations. I've had zero issues with, the memories of almost dying. I have multiple examples of that happening, but I don't have a single sort of bad memory from that. It's just kind of oh yeah, that was a thing. It was close. What haunts me is those memories of children being involved in combat and seeing what happened to them. And so, yeah, you absolutely made the right decision, man, to not, if you're not at a place where, you feel comfortable writing that book about, children being abused and whatnot, man, yeah, that's a good call because you want to know what, that's going to stick with you for the rest of your life. And yeah.
And you know what, bro, there's so many, all this stuff. I don't care if people believe this Pizzagate stuff or not. I fucking believe it. But the point is, whether or not you believe it goes on at the highest levels of government and etc. or not, doesn't matter. The fact is that it does go on. And I think it says a lot. When I look on my feed, the people that are being the most outspoken about it are all veterans. Because we've been to countries where children are treated like fucking, children are treated like absolute shit. They're fucking raped, beaten, tossed about, sold like fucking property. And we know what can happen to kids. And that's why I think veterans are standing out and talking up for kids more than I'm seeing civilians doing.
Yeah, and I think that, specifically with veterans, there's every man has an intrinsic desire to, I guess we'll just call it, to be a hero, right? We want to rescue the damsel in distress. We want to protect our families. We want to provide for our families. That's why, a lot of men are driven to get more money and be a hero in different ways, right? And there's different ways to be a hero. But at the absolute core is the defense of children, right? Because children, and for me, it's especially little girls. So for me, it's when I see, a little boy in trouble, or if I saw a little girl in trouble, I'm going to be way more apt to go help the little girl. I'm going to help either, you know what I mean? But that's because children represent innocence. Children represent the future. Children represent the way that we all should look at the world, full of hope, full of love, full of curiosity, living in the moment. Remember when you were a kid and, school, school's you have 2 more months left in the school year and you're like, oh, 2 months, that's forever, right? Mm-hmm. Because as a kid, you're living in the moment, you're living day to day. And so time just seems like this long thing. But then when you get older, you're like, oh man, I've only got, 6 months. It just doesn't seem as long, right? So my point is, as a protector, we want to protect those children. And so that is the most, powerful thing visually, but also life experience wise, just with, wanting to protect kids. Yeah, it's just in your DNA. It's just part of, who we are.
Dude, okay, so you said something that I found really interesting. Everyone wants to be a hero, right, when they're growing up. Because that's fucking true. Nobody's daydreaming about being a dweeb who doesn't get the girl. And I'm sorry for anyone out there who's not a guy thinking about a girl. I know there's a million different variations, and I support them all. But for the point of argument, I'm going to say guy getting a girl. All right, so there's your fucking caveat. So that everyone else there wants to be the hero, and like usually that involves overcoming obstacles and defeating the bad guys, good versus evil, and then you get the person that loves you, and everyone thinks you're a fucking G. But not everybody goes through with that.
Mm-hmm.
Most people never attempt to become the hero. Most people never become the hero. Is there such thing as a hero? What is a hero? That's another question entirely.
Mm-hmm.
But and we can come on to that. But in the first instance, most people fail the test to become quote unquote the hero to begin with because they just never even try to become one.
Mm-hmm.
What is it, do you think, that makes some people pursue that heroic journey and others just kind of bin it when they're a kid?
I think there's a certain level of I think first and foremost it comes from childhood. It comes from what you were taught. So there's a natural sort of and again, just sort of speaking like just men in general, but there's just a certain natural thing that's in our blood and in our DNA to be that hero, right? So that's in us. But then as a child, you're told different things about being a hero, right? So some people say, "Hey, don't take risks because you could get hurt," or "You can't chase your dreams," right? People who've completely failed at achieving their goals and dreams in life, they take it out on their kids, or they take it out on people, and it might even be like some school teacher who wished that they were a Harvard law professor, but things didn't work out, so now they're teaching sixth graders, right? And so then then they have sort of this negative attitude, and so they start telling people, well, getting into Harvard's really hard. You can't do that, or whatever it might be. So I think, what you're told as a child is a big thing, but then honestly, it comes down to each individual you just have to make a series of decisions. I remember when I was 14, I remember when I started my, I don't know, for lack of a better term, the hero's journey, using a literary phrase.
Yeah.
When I started, it was because I was at a football camp and I was playing junior varsity football, meaning American football. And at this football camp, you played both ways. You played offense and defense. So you're just getting beat up, right? Well, I was asked to also play at the varsity level because I was fairly decent. It just kind of came naturally to me.
What does varsity? What's that mean?
Varsity just means like the 11th and 12th graders, right? So I sort of like I was playing at the junior high level, but they wanted me to play with the kids that are a foot taller than me, right?
Okay.
So then I had to play both ways, offense and defense, with the with the varsity level, and I got hit during I was running the ball and I got hit and I broke a rib, and I was in so much pain. I remember I was like crying because I was so overwhelmed. Like, oh my word, I have to go play basically 4 of these high intensity American football games, and I just remember like I made the decision right then and there. I was like, you know what, I'm going to suck it up. I am not going to let I'm not going to go home and tell my father that I didn't suck it up. And I remember I was like, nope, you're not going to cry. Just get back out there and fight and do everything that you possibly can. Screw the pain. Just keep going. And every single human being and that was when I was 14. And that's what, honestly, that was a fork in the road that I didn't realize was happening. I chose to man up, and that put me on a totally different trajectory. When I was 14 years old, if I had made the decision to be like, ooh, well, I'm hurt, I should probably just, see if I can just take things a little bit easier. Dude, I would be in a totally different place right now.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is there comes a point where you just have to make that decision to go and, pursue your dreams, have the courage to protect other people. And it's scary and it's dangerous and it's going to be painful and it's going to cost you, and you might not make it out alive, in like war. Right. But there's a right thing to do and there's a wrong thing to do. It's like, you can do the right thing or you can do the wrong thing. You can live with courage or you can live with fear. And that's just a choice each individual has to make.
Yeah. And dude, honestly, like, you'd already kind of made that decision as well. You wouldn't be on a fucking football field getting hit. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that's
Like,
true.
so
Yeah, that's true.
there's also that, because a lot of people never step on the football field. But when you were saying that, then you just like literally, I'd forgotten something from my childhood that you just dragged up, which is kind of crazy, and which is, and it's again, I always think like, how is it that we end up so similar? We're born on different parts of the world, and all of us that are in the infantry or the SEALs or whatever, we all end up so similar. And I had one in rugby where I was picked up in a tackle and dropped on my shoulder, probably about 14, 15. I think probably 14, and my shoulder separated. And we pushed it back in, and my coach asked me, he was like, "There's 5 minutes left. Can you play?" And all right, fuck it, I'll play.
Awesome.
So I played the last 5 minutes. Soon as I got in the car with my mum, I cried my eyes out. And it wasn't because of the pain, it was because my mum started making a fuss at me, and all of a sudden but I played through the last part of the game. And like, if I looked back on that now and I'd come off the field, God, I'd just have so much fucking shame about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, it was funny. So my mum the other day was bringing up, she's seen something on a TV show about some mountain lion that had attacked one cyclist, and his friend had tried to fight it. His friend had tried to drag it away or something. And my brother had said, my brother's a boxer, my brother had said, like, why didn't he attack the lion? And my mum was like, well, it would kill him. He's like, well, it's killing his friend. And my mum asked me when I came into the room, she goes, what would you do if a mountain lion was attacking your friend? I go, attack the mountain lion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just instantly. Of course you fucking would do. But it's not how everyone thinks.
Absolutely.
Some people think, oh, if a mountain lion's attacking my friend, I'll try and pull my friend out of danger. Not, I'll attack the mountain lion. Did you see that kid recently that his sister was getting attacked by a pit bull, I think it was, or a dog? His sister was getting. I don't want to be derogatory towards pit bulls if it wasn't a pit bull. So let's just say his sister was getting attacked by a dog. So this little kid threw himself in the way, and he basically got like 90 stitches in his face or something.
I saw a picture of that kid.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I don't know if there was a video or not of it, but yeah, I saw the picture of him. Yeah.
Dude, so when he got interviewed, they said to him like, well, why did you do that? And he's like, well, I just thought if someone was going to die, it should be me. I was like, what a fucking warrior.
Dude, that gave me goosebumps. Like, yes, yeah, that's what's up. That's good parenting. That's being, that's, having good male role models, teaching him that, man, that's awesome. And that's true. And it's like, yeah, if someone's going to die, it should be me.
Yeah, dude. And here's one of the things as well. Like, it's not a bad thing to be willing to, there's a difference between wanting to die and being willing to die.
Big difference. Right? Yeah.
But it's like, it's a pretty, like, because we're all fucking on our way out, right? So me and Tom, we had a guest on, Tom Satterley, who's a Delta Force operator, and we were talking about, so Tom was involved in the Battle of Mogadishu, made famous by Black Hawk Down. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about, and he was saying that, like, one of the reasons that America didn't intervene in Rwanda was because they were worried that if they lost soldiers there, it would be bad publicity and stuff. And we were basically saying that as a soldier, if you were told, hey, there's hundreds of thousands of people being fucking killed in genocide here, are you willing to go and risk your life to stop it? You'd say, yeah. And like Tom said, he was like, and any guy that says no is not a guy I want to fucking soldier alongside.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's like, that's what you're there to do. You're there to protect. You're there to, and it's like, and especially like with the military and just, I guess, and just in general with anything in life, dude, there's risks. There's risks, no risk, no reward, man. Mm-hmm. And, when it comes to, people being attacked, like there comes a point where it's like, you want to know what? If I die, I die, and like the day that I was shot, that was my attitude. It was like, all right, if I die, I die. And it's like, I'm not going to sit and watch this little girl, just die. Cause I already watched 3 kids die earlier today. Because we couldn't get to them fast enough, or we had to coordinate this, this mission. But, and then there's one little girl left, and it's like, all right, dude, we're going to go. Like, we're going to go. I don't care if I die. I would rather die next to her than go home, and be like, oh yeah, I let that little girl die and didn't try anything. It's like her life, honestly, is worth more than mine. As an individual, people have to realize, like, what would you do for your kids? What would you do for someone else's kids? It's like, you want like that little boy throwing himself in front of the pit bull to protect his sister, or the dog to protect his sister. Man, like, he's absolutely correct. It's like, my sister's life is worth more than mine. I love her more than I love myself. And that's how you have courage, when you love somebody else more than you love yourself.
And I think, dude, what people need to do, and we all need to do this, is we need to differentiate your physical death from the death of your soul.
Ooh, that's good.
So if you hadn't have done that don't steal them.
Writing that down.
So this is literally just something that I came up with. I was talking to somebody the other day. I was talking to someone on Instagram and they were like, "Oh, you're so brave for going to do what you did." And I said, "Actually, I disagree. I don't think I am brave, because to not go and be a soldier would have been like killing my soul."
Absolutely.
It was easier for me to go and risk my physical self than it was to kill my soul.
Mm-hmm.
And like for you with that girl, if you hadn't have done that, your physical body would be alive, but your soul would have died.
Absolutely. And if, there's another statement out there, I'm going to butcher it, but it's like, if you haven't found something you'd die for, you're not fit to live, or something like that, or you haven't started living until you found something that you're willing to die for. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
It's just like everything else that we were talking about, like things aren't black and white. And that's definitely the same for life. Just because you're living doesn't mean you're living. And we look at that all the time. But, we have to make... So a decision, for instance, might be, am I going to go out and I'm going to have a party with my friends? That might affect your physical... Well, it might affect the physical body, but it might be really beneficial to the kind of the spiritual side of things. So
yeah, you socialize, blow off some steam, have some fun with your friends, but not every single night. Have that once a week or once every other week or whatever works for you. Yeah, I
couldn't help but smile, dude, because the world is such a fucking small place, right? And so I'm listening to your story. And you're like, you have a down moment in your life and you go to a bar and you're like, oh, Pacific Beach in San Diego. And I was like, oh, I know Pacific Beach in San Diego. And you're like, oh, I went into PB Shore Club. I'm like, no way. First bar I went to in San Diego. So
that's funny.
Like the first bar I ever went to in San Diego. And I've been there a lot since. We don't really go anywhere. I think it was in my 20s, late 20s, I went to PB a lot. I don't really go there since. We'll talk sometime in person about some of the things that happen in PB, but it was nuts for me that I'm thinking like, wow, like I'm listening to Ephraim's story on audiobook, which you narrate really well, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
And I'm like, this is nuts that he's going through these same things that I've been through, possibly even sitting on the same stool in the bar. Like, it's a fucking small world, bro.
Yeah, it is. And the human experience is so much more similar in so many different ways. Like, we all struggle with the same, 5 or 6 things over and over and over again, whether you're a billionaire or whether you're a, someone who's struggling to get by. We all have the same struggles. We all want to be loved. We all want to grow. We all want to have meaning. We all want to, be a hero. We all want to have a strong family. And those are all things that, money can't buy. So the human experience is, it's a lot more similar than it is different.
You know what? The be a hero thing as well is like, because I was thinking like, I was like, do I agree with him or not on this one? And I've come around to thinking I do, because one of the things we've seen in lockdown and stuff is one of the reasons people are kind of like so shouty with each other is, you've been told, oh, if you sit on your sofa, you're a hero. You're not overburdening the NHS. You're being a hero if you sit down. And it's like, people like that because we all want to be a hero with the minimum amount of work.
Oh, right,
so if you tell someone like, hey, you can be a hero by exercising every day, eating a good diet and all that stuff, and then you're going to be less likely to be a burden on the on medical systems because you're going to keep yourself in good shape, and people that are in good shape do not have problems with COVID as likely as you do if you're obese. If you say that to someone, they'd be like, oh, fuck it, being a hero sounds like too much work. If you say to them, just sit on your sofa and you'll be a hero, people are like, oh, I'm a hero.
I'm just sitting here saving lives.
Yeah, exactly. And but then more so than that, anyone that then isn't doing it, so then it's like, oh, I can be a hero, like, if I see someone that's not wearing a mask and I can scream at them and I'll be a hero. Now, I don't mind which side of the mask debate people are on. I really don't give a fuck, to be honest. But what I'm just saying is we give people very easy ways to be a hero and they'll snap them up. Whereas the reality is, again, we can argue, debate all day about what a hero is. But A hero is not someone who sits on his fucking sofa. I'll tell you that right now.
That's true. There's a bunch of signs here in the U.S. and so we have a store that's called Walgreens. It's just a drugstore. You know, it's like a pharmacy type of corner store. But yeah, they have signs like heroes work here. Like, oh, you're sacrificing so much to work work the cash register at Walgreens. It's like, I'm sorry, you're not a hero.
Yeah, you're probably a great person.
Yeah, exactly.
Good for you for being there, and we appreciate you being there. We're lowering the bar on hero too much. Like a hero to like there's very few. I'm not a fucking hero. I'll tell you that right now. There's very few. I'll get very uncomfortable if people say that because I'm like, well, I know that's not true. Because
exactly,
you know, they're like, oh, you were a hero going to fight. No, I kind of went to fight because I just fancied a bit of adventure. Actually, you know, if that's the truth of it. And most of us say the same. And you know, it's again with a hero thing. If we let's be honest about this. If we're saying, well, this guy's a hero because he charged out into machine gun fire to rescue his friend, well, then shouldn't we extend the same and say that this ISIS fighter that ran out into fire to drag his friend back is a hero?
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. See, and that's but he can't be a hero because he's the bad guy. And but it's like, but that's what I'm saying. Like what I was saying earlier, human experience is so similar. That ISIS fighter who runs out to grab his buddy who's just been shot, he loves his friend. He thinks he's doing the right thing, and he has to overcome the fear of death and risk his life to save his friend, for sure. Yeah, it's the same human experience, whether you're an ISIS fighter or whether you're a Navy SEAL. Like it's the same human experience, but the ideas and the principles and the ways that those ideas and principles then affect humanity and affect, you know, cultures and societies and general levels of happiness and safety, you have to fight over it, unfortunately, at some point. Like, because there does come a point, though, where, hey, they're wrong. They're wrong. There is no, like, I'm not going to sit down with an ISIS fighter and be like, all right, well, tell me where you're coming from. And, you know, you have a really good point there. I'm never going to do that because it's like, I'll listen to what you have to say so I can understand, like, what kind of twisted thoughts are going on in your head. But at the end of the day, it's like, no, dude, you're wrong. Period. You're wrong. and
you're going to die.
You're going to die. Yeah, exactly.
But you know what, mate? I'll fucking say, and I defy anyone that served in an infantry unit to say different. There are guys that I served with. I'm not saying they're my friends, but there are guys in the units that I served with who, if you told them they could throw people off the top of buildings, they would have fucking done it.
Oh, right.
If you told them they could have shot the local women and kids, they would have fucking done it.
Oh, dude. I remember there was a guy I was with, or I served with in the teams. And I was like, I remember I just had the thought, I was like, dude, if, you know, because he didn't do anything bad, but it was like his mindset and the stuff that he was saying. And I was like, dude, you know, I joined the military to fight people like you. Mm-hmm. You are diabolical, man. Like you are evil. Like you are only here because you want to, you know, basically rape and murder and pillage. And if you're gonna, you know, it's better for him to, you know, be like in the SEAL teams, you know, so there's some discipline and like that's not going to be allowed to happen. And that was sort of, I guess, sociopath or psychopathic guy can then have, I guess, a constructive way to use that sort of killer instinct. That's a good thing. And that's a good thing for him to be in that place. I mean, but because he can be controlled by the people around him. But if you don't have that culture, if, you know, and as you know, it's like when you're out there and it's just you and the boys, you know, I mean, things can get medieval really, really quick. You know, the bullets start flying, people are dying, it's life and death. It's like, all right, things get medieval, you know, or can get medieval at the drop of a hat. Again, if you don't live by principle, if you're not operating by principle.
And what we've seen in, you know, very recently, and you know, we don't need to comment on specific cases, but let's just say that when it came out that it looked very likely that some Americans had committed atrocities, the kind of attitude of the public was, there's no way this can happen. All of our guys are heroes. And let's just think about that. Mm-hmm. If you have a few 100,000 people serving the country at the same time, it is insane to actually be more than that, wasn't it? How many people serving at one time in America?
I have absolutely no idea.
Millions? But let's just say it's a few 100,000, which is at least a few 100,000. It would be insane to think that there is not a handful of people in there who are not bad people, who are just looking to kill people. Like, that would just be so stupid to think that.
Right.
But it's almost like this thing of you'll be like, to just bring up the idea and say, well, maybe some of our soldiers have deliberately killed civilians. Whoa. Do you hate this country? No, I don't hate this country. I love this country, which is why we need to have high standards.
Yeah, there's just this thing where it's like, yeah, you have to fight, but you also have to like not destroy the principles of the society that you're trying to protect by going against those principles. Because then you just become the villain in a way. And kind of referring to, I think we're both probably thinking about the same situation, and we won't go into details on it. But it's like with that situation, like I know both sides of the story. Like I know one of the individuals like who was being charged with stuff, and I know the guys who were involved in charging, and it's like I was actually in. What's funny is when a lot of that stuff happened, like I was there in close proximity to some of those things. But it's interesting because people that go like, yeah, either your instinct is, oh, he's 100% guilty, he's murdering children, or it's there's absolutely no way it could happen. It's one side or the other, and the reality is that the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. The truth is like, probably some bad stuff happened, and but that's reality. And people don't, I guess people don't understand that, because it is hard to understand too, especially with like the modern world and modern warfare. There's so many cameras. It's so easy to put something up online. It's so easy to, make something political. But like war and like what actually happens or I wouldn't say war, but I'll say battle, like the actual act of combat, the act of you are trying to kill me, I'm trying to kill you. That act is almost like a, for lack of a better term, I would call it like a sacred act. It's something that nobody else should be able to talk. Like you do, if you weren't there, you don't get to have a say in what happened. You don't get to give your opinion, especially if you've never been in a similar situation, because it's like it's so animalistic and life or death and split second, and there's fear and there's emotions and all this other stuff that you can't judge somebody based on like split second decisions that happen. Now that's different than, somebody who's actively, targeting like little girls or something and shooting them in the face. Obviously that person's a psychopath, but I think society is way too interested in trying to get involved in like the battlefield. And it's like, no. Like, like you don't even like work out. Like, like you don't even eat healthy. So don't talk to me about, the finer points of some decision that was made on a combat mission on the other side of the world.
Yeah, dude, we had my friend Brian Wood, MC, on the podcast, and Brian was hounded through the courts for years. But basically, the long story is they came into contact, he cleared some enemy from positions, and then there was totally spurious claims that these guys had been farmers, and when he was getting grilled in court, he had no real help from the army. And I couldn't help but thinking, if that, like, they should have just taken that jury, put them in the back of the armored vehicle and taken them on a training area, had some explosions gone off, had them run around, and then asked them, because, they're asking him to recount how many people did you see here, how many people did you see there, what the distance is.
Yeah.
And if they'd have just put them in the back of that vehicle for 20 minutes on a training area and ran them through an exercise and then asked them, and then they would have gone, oh yeah, I see, it's impossible not to know. Instead of being like, oh, well, what he says isn't matching up with what he says.
Oh, right. If
any of you remember a contact in exactly the same way, or a firefighter, or whatever you guys, I don't know what you guys call them. But if you remember it in the same way, that's just coincidence, because you've all got, like, you're seeing a different thing. That what you think might have been an enemy soldier might have just been a bit of dirt that went in your eye, like.
Absolutely. If everybody's story matches up perfectly, then I know that everybody's lying. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, you guys practice, like what you were going to say to the jury. Like, there's going to be discrepancies, and even just with, my own personal experience, like the day that I got hit, I honestly, like, after I got hit, I wasn't really sure what had happened. I wasn't really sure where I was standing in relation to the other guys on the team. I wasn't sure if I had fallen down or if I wasn't sure. Like, I didn't know. It was like a blank part in my head. I just remembered, like, sort of like screenshots almost of just these images of like what happened after I got hit. And then I remember I actually went and I wrote down in my journal, like that evening, I wrote down like, okay, this mission happened today. I was here and I got hit, and such and such happened. Well, then later, like a couple days later, a video popped up. Somebody had recorded the whole thing. And so I was able to actually go back and watch in 4K high definition the moment I got hit. And I was like, oh, that's not at all how I remember it. And
so funny.
so it's like, and like, that was a very important, pivotal moment. And
Yeah.
I didn't even know what had happened, 12 hours later as I was writing in my journal. I was like, I don't know.
It's funny, dude, because we've had a few guests on that have been shot. We've had a few on that lost limbs. Actually, so we got you that got shot. You can also see our guest Paul de Gelder being eaten by a bull shark. There's video of that.
Jeez.
It's funny in this day and age that we've got where people could be like, "Oh, look, here's me getting shot."
Yeah.
I know the first guest we had on the podcast was my friend Alex, who got shot through the neck when we were in Afghanistan, and guys had footage of it, but the OC made them delete it.
Oh,
and I know that's always really pissed him off because he wants that footage.
Yeah.
So were you glad when you found out that you had that video of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was absolutely glad to go back and watch it. Because it answered a lot of questions that I had, and I've watched it, 100 times, and I was like, okay, I was here, I was going there. I was like, I remember having this thought. So where was I when I was having that thought? And I was able to, watch that. But what was weird about it was, that video of me getting hit and, part of the rescue mission, one of the guys running out and grabbing the little girl while we were giving covering fire, all that stuff went viral. And so, yeah. I mean, literally at this point, probably 100 million to 250 million people easily have seen the video of me getting shot and seen the video of the rescue mission and things like that, which, as it was happening, I had no idea it was being recorded. Like, I had no idea. It was just like, all right, here we are, probably going to die today. We were cracking jokes like that before we went out there because we were kind of like, that's sick. Yeah, we're probably going to die. Like, just because where we were going and what we were doing was so absurdly insane. And I don't even know if I would have the courage to do it again.
I'm sure you would, mate.
Like, I don't know. Yeah, I would. I hope that I would, but it was terrifying. But it's interesting to go back and watch that. But more importantly, it's like having hundreds of millions of people, basically being able to have a 4K high definition view of one of the worst days of my life, of one of the most pivotal experiences that I think about 100 times a day because it's just burned into my brain, and the horror and the terror of it all. And, it's, I don't know, it's just, I kind of have mixed feelings about people being able to, the public being able to see it. But it is what it is. I'm not going to let myself get mad about it, but, because it's just a very like intimate, very like personal thing.
But like, yeah, mate, it's weird because I saw the video and obviously I was like, I saw the video and I'm like, oh, that's badass, good for them. Before, probably a couple of years ago now, is it?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's fucking badass, good for them. And like, what's weird is like, I've seen, as we all have now, I'm sure most listeners have, I've seen so many people die on camera that it's almost become like something that's not like a thing anymore. And because I've always thought, like, I've always had a problem with people laughing and like enjoying watching people get killed on camera. I've always had an issue with that.
Yeah.
Because that was somebody's son. He might have been a bad cunt in the end, but, it was somebody's son. Someone cared about that person. I've always thought, I'm a bit old school in this thing that I believe in honor.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about executions and stuff that, like, the thing is, mate, I'm all up for a fair fight, or not, and even an unfair fight. But what I'm not on board with this killing prisoners business.
Yeah, or enjoying that. Like, it's actually funny. I've actually never watched any of like the ISIS, beheading videos or any of that stuff. I've only seen like, little snippets that are all blurred out, like, on a documentary or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I intentionally don't look at it. I remember, I've been in, obviously overseas in combat zones, and guys will be like, oh, there's a dead body over here. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to look at it. Like, I'm not going to go look at it because it's like, you want to know what, dude? I already have 1,000 dead bodies in my brain. It's like, I don't want to go look at another rotting corpse. Like it's so messed up and it's so real. And that's interesting that you say that, because I feel the same way when people are like, oh yeah, like or they're laughing and stuff's blown up, and you're like, dude, like, do you have any, do you have any idea what it sounds like when somebody's getting burned alive? Like, do you have any idea what that sounds like? Do you have any idea what it's like when somebody's like screaming and dying? You have any idea what it's like to like listen to somebody choke to death? Do you have any idea what it's like to see that stuff and the terror and the horror and what it smells like and the fear of knowing that any any second it could happen to you too. Like it's not a fun, adventurous thing. And I think that, I think a lot of guys feel that way if they've actually experienced it. We have, movies are hyper realistic now. And, obviously everybody's seen Black Hawk Down. And that was a big reason for me joining the military. But it's like, people watch that, but it's like, no, you don't understand. Like, dude, that's like the video of me getting hit in that rescue mission. Everybody's looking at it from the angle where you can't see ISIS, but it's like my point of view from that day was basically looking down the barrel of a gun and my hands shaking out of terror, abject terror, and tripping over the bodies of, rotting children who were, executed the day before, and whose corpses are bloating and, like the most horrible, horrific stuff you can imagine. That was what I was dealing with. I was dealing with, oh my goodness, I just got shot. I'm going to get shot again. That's what I was experiencing. And so then, when people like watch the video, the response is like, oh, dang, like they're, oh, that's cool. And I get it. I don't get mad at people, don't get me wrong. Like I don't get mad for people to have that reaction or to see stuff, but it's like, no, dude, I'm not a hero. No, dude, it's not cool. And, we glorify war too much, I think, in society now. And it's like, dude, it's not a cool thing. There's absolutely nothing cool about war. It's a bunch of people running around slaughtering each other. And there is a triumph. There is an enjoyment when you are winning. When you're winning the gunfight. I've been in situations where it's like, oh, we're just crushing these guys, and it's awesome, and that is fun. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm not gonna sit and pretend like that's not fun. It is. It's great. Like you're like, oh yeah, we're like dropping these dudes like flies. But when the tide turns, when like, oh no, we're surrounded. Oh no, like there's a very decent chance we're all gonna die. Oh no, somebody just got hurt. Oh my goodness, that's my buddy on the ground screaming. Oh my goodness, there's kids getting shot right in front of me. All that stuff, that's what real war is. That's what the majority of actual real war is. And, it's not a thing to glorify. Yeah, I agree with you that my opinion on I guess like war and videos and of stuff like that. Like I don't watch that stuff because it's like I just don't want to see it. Like I don't need to see that.
Well, yeah. I never watch the execution stuff because, like I said, I just have a big issue with that. There's a part of me that really kind of like, I like watching the combat stuff because it's like, I'm a professional in what I did. Mm-hmm. And like, I've always been interested in war and I always will be. And I'm kind of watching it like you're just watching it as you watch a football game and you're breaking down tape. And you want to know, and you're trying to figure out like, oh, what did they do wrong here? Or like, I see, you see someone in Syria where some guy's hanging out his washing in the middle of a city, and then he gets fucking hit with a sniper. I'm thinking, well, that wasn't a good idea, dude. Like, don't hang out your washing.
Oh, right.
I like that, and that, but those things are burnt into your mind, like, so.
Yeah.
Like I always remembered in Afghanistan and stuff. I'm like, I ain't picking shit up. Because I can kill you, and I learned that by watching stuff.
Oh, dude, yeah, I wouldn't touch anything. Yeah, some guys would just like go pick stuff up. I'm like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not picking up anything.
Exactly, because I've read a lot of books about Vietnam and the Second World War where people were getting killed doing that, so I'm not fucking picking nothing up. Well, unless I'm tired, in which case I'll just fucking kick everything over because you just stop caring at that point. But yeah, dude, we're like, because there's definitely a part of me who's like, fuck. I'd love to be able to get back into a firefight and be on the machine gun and just fucking mow down hordes of the enemy. That'd be awesome. And that exists and probably always will exist. But then you think like, well, would I want to get blown up again? Would I want to lose a guy again? Would I want to lose one of my best mates? Because like, as much as every life we lost in Iraq and Afghanistan was a tragedy, most of my mates came home. Now, that's not always been the case in war. It's usually not the case in war. Like, I'm very lucky that was the case. That's not the norm in war. Mm-hmm. So I don't pretend to know everything I know about what I went through on deployments, but I've never been through what I would consider a war. Like, when half of you aren't coming back.
That's actually interesting too, because, when I was in the SEAL teams, we went and fought in Afghanistan. Honestly, like it was fun. It was like, and I'm glad you said that because I've kind of had that thought, and I would never want to be like, oh, dude, you've never really been to war. I would never say that to somebody. But like part of me is kind of like, no, dude, with certain guys that I've met and spoken to, and they're like, yeah, man, we're going to war, and it was like, dude, yeah, like nobody on your platoon got hurt, You had, aircraft and AC-130s and Apache gunships, above you at all times. You've got body armor, machine guns, and sniper rifles, and like you have all of this stuff. And it's like, of course you're going to win the war, and of course it's kind of fun, but you don't really, you didn't actually really experience the slaughter of like you've been to like battle, I guess, kind of, but it's like you haven't really been in a situation where it's like, hey, you're I guess World War II style being in combat, and that was something that I experienced as well, because when I was in Afghanistan, it was like, all right, I came back and was like, oh, I'm a veteran, I've been to war, and there was definitely some gnarly stuff in there. We definitely like earned our stripes for sure. Don't get me wrong. But then when I went to Mosul and fought in the Battle of Mosul, which was the deadliest urban battle the world has seen since World War II. That's why my book is called City of Death. Dude, I mean, it was an entirely different experience. It was, hey, today, we're in a group of 20 or 30 guys. We're working directly with the Iraqi army. It was like, today somebody is going to die, and at least 2 or 3 people are going to get shot, minimum, every single day. Like just with our little group here, like that one of the guys that you're talking to right now is going to be dead by the end of the day, and it was like that every single day for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then not to mention all the civilian population that was being shot and murdered and collateral damage and all that, and that was real war. It was like, no, you're coming across a dozen dead people minimum every single day, every day, and it was a totally different experience. And also, like, you don't have the air support. You don't have all of the assets and everything. It's, hey, you got to go root these guys out. You got to go building to building, room to room, and people are going to die today, period. And it was a very different mindset. So yeah, that was like, this is what war really, really means. And I was like, no, this is a terrible, terrible thing, man. It's it's awful.
Guys, thank you for listening today. Ephraim, thanks so much for coming on, mate. I really enjoyed that, and I cannot wait to have you back on the podcast. We got so much more stuff to talk about. I know you guys will have enjoyed today's podcast, so please go and follow Ephraim on social media. Pick up his book, City of Death. There's so much to go into on there. I think the audio book is like 10 hours long or something. There's so many like fascinating stories in there. So just head over to Audible. The link is in the show notes. Just click on that and it'll go straight through. While I've got your ears, guys, if you'd like to support the podcast, if you want to head over to vsomstore.com, also linked in the show notes, you can pick up some Ali merch. I am wearing one such item right now. I have I got the black t-shirt with the green MTP logo on there. Personally, I think it looks Ali. I think it looks Essence, and I think you should go and get one. I'll start putting more pictures of this kind of stuff up on the social media at Veteran State of Mind. I want to say thank you as well to the people that have been picking up the bits of kit off the store, because it does help us to keep the podcast running, and the Royal British Legion really help us with that. But it is quite time consuming doing this, so every little helps. I really appreciate you guys doing that. We have another Navy SEAL on the podcast next week. So after having none on, we've got 2 on the bounce. He's also an author. You guys probably know him. His name is Jack Carr. He is a best-selling author and just all-round top bloke. And we've got him on next week on Monday. So look forward to seeing you then. Catch you next time. Love you. Bye.
Yeah. Listen. Shout out Teaser. You told me not to worry, and you wouldn't break my heart. You told me you were sorry, yeah, my whole world fell apart. You said it's not my fault, and yeah, I've never done you wrong. I'm grinding to a halt, now I can see you're moving on. I promised I'd get better, and I told you things would change. You keep me to the gutter, yeah, I'll never be the same. I've gotta let you go, now live your life and spread your wings. And yeah, you put on quite a show, and pulled the puppet strings. And are you sure that you don't want me? Remember all the pain, or maybe you should thank me. It's your loss and my gain. I'm leaving now forever, I won't hang my head in shame. But yeah, you've taken me for granted, and you should feel ashamed. You sold a dream to all of us, a dream that we'd all die for, a reason for us all to live and something we could fight for. I might just help a man up to his feet or hold a newborn, but no matter what I do, my hands remembering my rifle, yeah.
Life's hard, I know that, still wouldn't change shit. I wouldn't go back, yeah, I wouldn't go back. Feelings I hold back, memories fade, yeah, they go fast, yeah, they go fast. Good times to come and go, survive the highs and lows. Just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose. Good times to come and go, survive the highs and lows. Just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose.